want to introduce you today. This is Dr. April Domine. Would you put your hands together and welcome her today? I've asked her to be my guest this morning, and just to kind of bring you up to speed with what's going on, for those of you that are not aware, early at the beginning of this year, one church joined, and we welcomed Pathway Church to come be a part of our church. Part of that deal is that not only would the people come over, and by the way, all of you from Pathway, I just want to say a huge thank you, and just thank you for being so patient. Thank you for being such a huge contributor in every way. We've been doing work projects over at our new facility, and Pathway folks that have come over have just right away become part of the family, and just so loving and generous and welcoming and open-handed, and I can't thank you enough. You know, merging two churches could be a train wreck if it wasn't handled correctly, and I just want to thank you for your maturity and your love and your missional focus. You are so loved here. So anyway, part of that deal was that Pathway Church, which oversees Gehanna Christian Academy, is now overseen by one church and by us. And so we realize all of a sudden now we have a school, which is amazing potential. The school has just under 400 students, pre-K through 12. I've had an opportunity to kind of go over there and meet the faculty, teachers. I've been preaching in their junior high and senior high chapel services this month, and I'm just blown away at the potential of that's over there. It's just amazing. And this really fits hand in glove with the vision that God's given us as a church. In fact, I'm going to just put up for you real quick. Our vision as a church is igniting a movement to reach a disconnected culture. Every single word in that line is important. Igniting, we want to create a word picture of something that spreads. Think of a wildfire or a forest fire. That's what the church was intended to do. That's why under the power of the Holy Spirit in the book of Acts, the church was sent out to go to places that hadn't been reached yet and to plant the church and share good news everywhere they went. We use the term movement instead of a church because sometimes church has the connotation of an institution, and yet Jesus didn't come to just establish another institution. Of course, we have to be organized and all of that, but it's really about a movement of the spreading of the power of God throughout our world to reach, again, another word picture. This is not church. This is a service. You are the church. I am the church. So wherever you go, the church is there. So we want to just build into our language that it's our job to reach, and then we use disconnected culture. Disconnected culture could be someone who's living in spiritual death, who's not accepted Christ as their Lord and Savior, or it could be someone who has accepted Christ, yet they are disconnected. They're not in relationship. They're not plugged in and using their gifts for the glory of God. So what we want to do is welcome and build this community and affect the community around us. That picture of a forest fire, that's what we want to be through the power of the Holy Spirit. So I want to talk to you today and give you this thought around the word spark, okay? Think about any massive fire starts with one spark, this little spark. And when you think about a spark, you know, this church was a spark. At one point, it was an idea. It was a prayer. It was birthed in prayer. We prayed, Lord, what do you want to do? And the idea started to formulate. I didn't see all this. I didn't know what all was going to happen. It was just a one step of obedience. It was a spark. And then mentors began to speak into it, and people began to come alongside. And next thing you know, God is doing an amazing work. In the same way for you, God will put sparks in your mind, in your heart. Some of you know exactly what I'm saying. It's already there. God planted a seed in your life, or there's something, it was an idea or a passion that you have that others don't have. When you talk about it, they just kind of look at you like they don't get it, and you're frustrated, they don't get it, but it's a spark God put in you, and he's going to use you to do it. And I think about 2 Timothy 1:6. The Apostle Paul is speaking to Timothy, and he says, hey, I want to remind you to fan into flame the spiritual gift that God gave you when I laid my hands on you. In other words, there's a spark that was placed inside of you, but you have a responsibility. You have one crack at life. You got one shot. And when God puts a spark in you, now it's your job to fan that into flame, to find out what does that mean? And God, where are you taking this thing? And what do you want me to do? And what sacrifices do you want me to make? What bold steps of faith do you want me to take? And so this really, I can't think of a better illustration of this than Dr. Domine and the life that she has and the things going on. I know, Dr. Domine, you've been in education now for 30 years, and but it started with a spark. Talk about that, would you?
Yeah. So where my whole story started, this is not a super spiritual story. I'm just going to prepare you right now. I actually spent my whole childhood, my whole life, focused on being a musical theater singer and actress. And I thought, that is exactly what I'm going to do. I started singing in church when I was 9, and I just, that's what I'm going to do. That's where I'm going to go. That's where I put all my energy. That's what my spark was. That's what my heart was. And I had I was in a small group, and I had some people, like right before my high school graduation, we're in small group, and I don't know if you've ever been in a small group where they do have kind of what we used to call a hot seat, and you sit in the middle, and people get around you, and they pray for you, and people just started saying to me really shocking things, like, we don't think that you're supposed to be in musical theater. Like, we don't know why we think this, but God's kind of speaking to us that we think you should be thinking about something else. And I was so angry and so defiant and just was like, God, no way. This is, this is what I'm doing. I know what I want. And so in a very super spiritual move, I sat on the dorm room of my floor freshman year and got the college catalog out and kind of said, okay, this is the way it's going to go. I'm going to just flip open the book, and whatever it lands on, that's what I'm going to take my first class. So I am not recommending this for college counseling. This is not how I approach this in my career, but it is what happened to me. So I actually first class landed on was special education. And so I took my first class, and from that very first class, I started thinking about my brother in that first class and the challenges that he had going to school. And I just kept thinking, why could no one ever figure him out? Why couldn't he ever, why didn't he ever, have good luck, succeed in school? So it started with that, kind of like, I want to really make a difference for the kids that school's not working for. And so I took class after class, and that just kind of grew. One of my favorite memories is one of my first experiences in the trenches working with kids. I was in a children's psychiatric hospital up in the Cleveland area. And because I was a musical theater person, I thought, I'm going to use music. And so I read all this stuff about musical therapy, and I started doing music therapy with this kid, and she just opened up, and I thought, that's it. I get it, God. This is what I'm supposed to do, and I loved it too. It wasn't just like I'm doing this because I have to. It was because I really, really loved it. And then my career just went from there. I taught in special ed for over 10 years. From that, I kind of got a spark that I wanted to make a difference in even more kids' lives. So I went into administration and was an assistant principal, was a curriculum director, became a superintendent. And just every step along the way, it was these sparks of how can I make even more of a difference in kids' lives and infect what's going on in the classroom.
When God gives you a spark, it can be so intimidating because you kind of have this dream that you want it to grow and you want it to make this huge impact, but it's tiny, like it's little, and you don't feel equipped to do it. So up to this whole point, you were musical theater and then now education. Did you ever see yourself as an educator? I mean, it was a completely new thought.
No, completely new thought. And then even just one chapter to the next, I really never saw the next thing. I'm going to do this, and maybe, I'm going to be in special ed forever. And then the next little door opened, and it was, no, you really need to, try being assistant principal. And then, every single step along the way. I mean, I never would have thought, this obviously tells how old I am, but 32 years ago right now, in January of 1984, I was student teaching in inner city Akron, and if you went back and talked to the me 32 years ago, I had no idea that 32 years later I'd be a superintendent or, any of the things that I've done.
It's such a great point because actually in that text, 2 Timothy 1:6, he says, fan into flame the spiritual gift that God gave you. The context is that this is the Apostle Paul speaking to Timothy, who is his son in the faith. If you know anything about their personalities, Paul was a type A, he was a bulldog. Timothy was a little more timid and shy and reserved. And Timothy had the task of pastoring a church with people older than him. So you'll hear Paul say language to Timothy like, hey, don't let anyone look down on you for being young. He was always forever trying to build up his courage to challenge him that, hey, this spark can become something huge. In fact, the next verse, in verse 7, he says, God's not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and of self-discipline. If God's given you a spark, absolutely you're going to be intimidated. Expect to be. A lot of times it's an area you feel under-equipped. Maybe it's an area you failed before. Maybe it's a spark of an idea that you have not been educated for. You don't have any experience in. You look around at other people and you're like, well, they're way more capable than me. It could even be parenting. You go, I didn't grow up seeing a good parent. I don't even know how to do this. Like, anything that's in front of you, the great thing that God has sparked in your life will have a degree of intimidation to it, and you may not even see yourself in that way. I'll just tell you, I don't see myself like a pastor. I never saw that for myself. When it came into ministry, the idea of public speaking was terrifying to me. I had no desire to public speak. The Lord had helped me to lead over time, but as far as getting up and talking to people, I was like, man, I'm not going to have anything to say. After like the third sermon, all my knowledge will be out, and I'll be done. And it was just so intimidating, and yet it's really a matter of fanning it into flame. April, I love what you're saying. It was taking that step. And I mean, think about that. It's really a matter of, it's a spark of an idea, and then you start learning. You went and said, look, I'm going to get my degree in this, and I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot. But try something I've never done before. And then all of a sudden, a new passion begins to develop. Think about, when you think of an educator, you think of sometimes a very austere, academic person, and yet a musical theater, what? But think about where God was leading you into this area where it took a significant amount of creativity to be able to get through to kids with special needs. And it's that same creativity that the Lord has used to spark new ideas for you. So tell me about kind of the transformation over time and the new sparks.
Yeah. The new sparks, certainly just as you keep learning and you keep having experiences. I didn't bring a rap today, but I told Greg I did bring homework for him. So if you can see, there's a stack of books for him to read. But no, sparks for me started with just probably about 10 years ago, starting with, reading a book, reading Clayton Christensen, and then really starting to explore that idea, and then really starting to look at what innovation companies were doing and what was going on with Google, and then being in, I took a leap and worked for Battelle for Kids and was in Houston for 9 months, and being in Houston was a whole new eye-opener and just introducing me to new schools and new ways of thinking, and I met new people along the way. Like each person I met, had some new idea that got them passionate, that kept creating sparks in me. And then there was another book and studying what IDEO was doing as a company, and then going from Houston, coming back here, and then doing a project for 26 districts in Appalachia, and really diving into issues of rural poverty and how that affects children in Appalachia, just like when I was in Houston, and it stretched my vision about what was going on in urban education. And every single step along the way was just planting these seeds, like, I want to be part of doing something with that. I want to ignite something different. And then I ended up at Vanderbilt and got to know the cohort of people I went through my doctorate with, and they just were such a passionate and creative group of people. And so that really started to ignite a whole new spark around being part of the future of education. All of those sparks leading to, someday I'm going to be part of really planting, building, helping create the future of education and starting a school that ignites a movement. And so that whole, how can we ignite a movement? And then and then you and I started talking, and just how those passions come together, how those visions come together is really kind of mind-blowing.
Let me connect some dots for you here as to how this even ties into the vision of what we're trying to do big picture as a church. We talk about being a battleship and that we're on mission. When Jesus sent the disciples out on mission, he said, hey, I want you to basically impact the world. He said, go Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Hometown, state, country, ends of the earth. That's our mission. That's what we want to do. And so what we want to do is we want to understand culture, and we want to influence culture. We're not trying to look like culture so that we can try to be like culture. We want to understand culture enough that we can create culture. And when you think about sociologists have this basically described and discovered what they call seven centers of cultural influence. And so they talk about if you're going to impact or influence a culture in any way, you've got to hit these 7 areas. It's the church, business, government, education, media, arts and entertainment, and family. Think about anybody who has an agenda. We're seeing it. We'll see it now over the next year with presidential election. They go through every single one of these centers of cultural influence to influence the population. Well, why would we as the church not do the same thing? Absolutely. If we're wanting to influence the world for the kingdom of God and to be on mission, then we need to really have influence in every one of these areas. This doesn't mean that we're going to forget we're the church. Of course, we know we're the church, but yet we want to look for opportunities that God may give us to have influence in a broader sense to reach more people. And think about education. That's a huge piece. That's massive. And so we've been looking, and go ahead and bring up that map of Columbus. Some of you, as you travel for work, you've probably noticed a dynamic, especially if you're going to major cities around the country, that there's a dynamic that's happened in our country in big cities. So think about Chicago, Columbus is a big city, places like Houston, Dallas, New York. What you have is as the population density goes up, the presence of the church goes down. This is logical. It makes sense because what happens is you get these landlocked areas and these commercial real estate smart people basically said, we'll buy this plot of land and we'll build a vertical neighborhood. The sky's free. So we're just going to go as high as we can and charge rent and sell apartment, do all that kind of stuff. So a lot of these buildings, they look like these cold, inanimate objects, but there's people there. There's people living there. Sometimes they'll have retail on the first floor. They'll have a few floors of office, and then they have people living in them. So you look at this building, it's people. I mean, you're talking 500 single-family homes, and they're smashed into these small spaces. Well, why is the church not there? Well, duh. We can't afford it. Okay, think about it. We're getting ready to move to 16 acres in Gahanna. How much would 16 acres in Columbus right there cost you? You can't afford it. The church can't afford it. But there's a massive problem that we can't just go, well, that's a tough problem. No, we're on mission. We're a battleship. So we say, if there's a population density, we got to figure out a way to get the church there. The answer is through symbiotic relationships. Okay, we can't afford to go down in the heart of the city and reach a lot of people. But if we partner together and we have collaborative relationships, then we can do this. Think about this. Right now, we have an opportunity here at the school to continue to develop and understand how to crack the code on a multi-ethnic, multi-economic, diverse school that has an innovative educational experience. The world has changed, from the industrial age to the information age. It's completely new. One of our friends we were talking to the other day said, yeah, we can't educate Jetson kids with Flintstone tactics. I love that word picture, and that's the idea. How do we create students that create the future? Now, from a battleship perspective, I want you to imagine this. Imagine that we really continue to develop our school, and we build it out, and we learn how to do this, and we create a DNA worth reproducing. And we say, what we're going to do? We're going to take and we're going to plant another school, and we're going to go into the heart of our city. And what we're going to do is we're going to lead the way by taking good care of students, by loving families, by giving the highest quality, innovative education that we can possibly do. And as we do that, now we love these families, take care of these families, love these people unconditionally, and then we have church on Sunday. I mean, friends, we are sitting in a building right now, a charter school that, we ended up in this relationship on accident. Okay, we ended up here on accident. We were looking for space. They had space. Imagine if it was intentional. Now, by the way, I'm going to say this so nobody goes out and tweets me and messes me up. We're not turning this into a charter school. Okay, all right, everybody got that? Okay, please tell everybody, nobody needs to worry. We're not turning Gahanna Christian Academy into a charter school. What we're looking to do, though, is create a versatile DNA that we can put in different places. Friend, the sky's the limit on this. We could do this in any city, anywhere in the country, plant a church and a school at the same time, have a relationship similar to what we've had here. We've been able to be a blessing to this school. By the way, none of this stuff was here when we got here. We came in gave them lighting so that their school assemblies have lighting. We built this stage. We asked them, what stage do you want? And we built it for them. When we got here, the maintenance man was mopping the school by hand. We got him one of those Zamboni floor scrubbers. Some of you were here. We brought him up, gave him a gift card, handed him the Zamboni with a bow on it. And he was like, oh my God, because he had been mopping the school by hand. We have an opportunity to do that, okay, and reproduce, as we have a vision to reproduce the church. And this was a vision that the Lord had placed in your heart. So this is where this all sort of escalated. What did I leave out? Anything there as far as your heart for innovative education?
Yeah, no, I think that's it exactly. What does it look like to create a place where kids experience their passion and become the people they need to be to lead the world, to innovate, serve, and lead in the world? And we've talked so much about, you hear so much about choice in education and vouchers and charters and all these other things, but no one has thought about the influence the church could have. So imagine that we're creating the future of education, but the church is leading the way, and the church creates a model that's replicable, and the church shows everybody else, here's what innovative education could look like to help kids be ready for their future. I mean, the sky's the limit. The vision's limitless.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question that people have been asking me, and I'm sure people have been asking you, okay? Like, why in the world are you doing this? Okay, like on paper, this makes absolutely no sense, right? I mean, you're going from one of the top school districts in the state of Ohio, almost 5,000 students in the district, coming to a school that's just under 400 students. You're taking a pay cut, right?
Yeah. Well, and now you have witnesses.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. I thought this was as good a time as any to let you know that. You are
thanks. I appreciate
be making less money. So, in our paradigm in America, man, it's all about climbing. It's going to the next level. It's, nobody's 10-year plan goes, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to take a giant step. Okay. So this doesn't make sense to the world. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. I am getting that question a lot, yeah. But it's that, think about, when the spark's been building in you all this time, and this passion's been building in you all this time. And one of the things that's been really real to me as I've been kind of soul-searching through all of this is that passion isn't in you by accident, right? It's almost like God's been creating this vision in you and waiting for that moment when he was going to say, this is why I brought you to this point, so that you could follow this call. This is the vision. I mean, so really simply, it's just following the call. This is what everything in my life's been building to do.
Are you afraid? Are you scared?
I am afraid. I am afraid. Yeah. I mean, just that Timothy verse, right? It's impossible to not be afraid about taking this leap, right? When everything in your world is about, like you said, building your resume, climbing the ladder, rung after rung. But the vision, again, that God has created is just blowing my mind that I even get to be part of that. It's just, my son said something to me the other day about he's so excited about this. And he said, Mom, in terms of the vision, you are hilariously outmatched by God. And I was like, oh, you're right, Anthony. I am outmatched. And so I was telling Greg the next picture really should be a picture of the beach, but he thought that was kind of rubbing it in because I did get to go to Cancun last weekend. But
not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool. Too soon.
Yeah, the ocean is a great place for me. When I'm at the beach, I feel really connected to God and just the greatness of God. And so I had this moment where I'm sitting on the beach. It was one of those days where the surf was really intense, and they had the red flag out because the water's so intense and the wind's blowing so hard. And so I'm just watching this greatness of this unfold before me. And then I see this family, and there's this dad who's right in the beginning of the water, not very far into the waves. And his wife and two kids are standing out of the water, and his little 4-year-old, just really tiny little guy with this life preserver wrapped really tightly around his neck, and he's just standing there terrified. And but you can see, he really wants to go. He really wants to be where his dad is, and he really wants to go in those waves. So his dad comes out to him and picks him up, and the kid just leech wraps around his neck. I mean, so tight, I couldn't even believe he could breathe, right? And so, but then he starts carrying his little boy out into the waves, And, I'm watching, and this little 4-year-old's face goes from terror to like calm to like this big grin. And then he starts laughing. And I just had a moment, and I felt like God was really speaking to me and saying, this is the vision that I have for you, and you just need to wrap yourself around my neck. And we're going to go.
Praise God.
So.
Well, April, I want to first of all, on behalf of our church and Gahanna Christian Academy, thank you for being willing to be obedient to God. And it's one thing to talk about faith; it's another thing to be about it and to take this kind of step and to do this. And it's going to be amazing. I'm really just thankful to you for being willing to do this. I'm excited to work with you. And I want to say to you, some of you are here today. God's been stirring something in your heart. He started a spark in your heart. You have a responsibility with the limited time we have on earth to follow that and to fan it into flame. Don't let it die. If God put it there, you're supposed to fan it into flame. Take a step of faith. Step out of your comfort zone. Do something unorthodox if you sense that's what the Lord is leading you to do. I love the picture of April's life because you have somebody that really had kind of achieved what you try to achieve in the administrative world and the school, and yet the passion for fulfilling the mission of God, the call of God on your life, trumped any sort of conventional America version of here's what your life should be. I'm not going to let anybody tell me what my life should be except God. And when God puts that in front of you, you step out in obedience. And just thank you so much.